Now we're going to try a couple of troubleshooting methods that you can try at home if you're having troubles with your amplifier. If you hear a sound like this, you're probably experiencing a valve issue. There's one good way we can check this. The first way we can check this is by plugging a guitar into the return socket of the effects loop. By doing this, we bypass the first few gain stages of your amplifier. This will then indicate if the problem lies early on in the signal chain. If you still have the noise when plugging your guitar into the return of the effects loop socket, the problem probably lies with one of your output valves or later stage preamp valves. If the problem disappears, that would indicate it's early on in the chain. If you have a spare preamp valve, just try it in one of the first few sockets. This is usually in V1 or V2, or in some cases V3. These are the three preamp valves that will be closest to your input socket. Another common valve issue is a microphonic valve. So what is a microphonic valve? A microphonic valve is a valve that begins to self-oscillate, similar to when you hold a microphone to a speaker cabinet and it just begins to feed back constantly. Now, here we have a VX Kraken. A common misconception is that this valve would be microphonic. I'll show a quick demonstration of a valve that isn't microphonic. Now, as you could hear, when I tapped the valve, it made a response every time there was contact made. This is completely normal. If the valve was microphonic, it would begin to squeal and self-oscillate, and it wouldn't be able to be tamed unless the amplifier's volume was turned down or it was switched off altogether. So you might be wondering, what does a microphonic valve actually sound like? Well, it should sound something a bit like this. Quite a common question we get is, are my valves microphonic in my V4 amplifier or my V4 preamp? Usually this isn't the case. Sometimes when pressing the front foot switch button, you may hear a pinging or ringing sound. If this slowly begins to dissipate over time, then there's nothing wrong with your amplifier. This is completely normal. This is how all valves operate. If the amplifier begins to ring out, squeal, oscillate and feed back, that's when it's a problem. If you don't like the pinging sound, we also offer a remote foot switch option for all of our V4 amplifiers and V4 preamps. Another troubleshooting method that we can use, if you have a spring reverb tank in your amplifier, like in this Copper Deluxe head, and you hear a sound like this, it may be worth checking that the phono cables that connect the reverb tank to the chassis connectors are making a good connection. Double check that the sockets and the plugs are making a good, firm connection at both ends.